Okie dokie. Let's try this again here. Alrighty. Hey everybody, welcome to the show. Today is the 28th, Sunday the 28th. It's almost the end of September. This month has blown right by. Our summer, I don't know if you've been keeping up with all the things that we've been doing here around the Rufus Opus area and whatnot. Over the summer, we went over the 7 spheres and all of the planetary and occult magic, all the kinds of magic that we do as occultists, as planetary magic. My understanding of the great work in general, how to do conjuration magic, how to, hey Allison, happy Sunday, how to do conjurations, how to do initiations into the 7 spheres. We talked a little bit about the Holy Guardian Angel and tutelary spirits in general, and talked a lot about the great work and the process of initiation and what happens with all of that. And it being September and time flying as it is, I thought today what we'd talk about is what comes next, which is, as you're doing these initiations, if you've been following along at home and doing the planetary initiations, you're going to be going through a lot of insights and a lot of understandings, a lot of growth in your sphere, in general, and in your life in particular, or your sphere in general. But anyway, as a magician, you're going to start understanding things in a different way. You're going to start interacting with things and people in different ways, and eventually you're going to reach a point where you start to see through the illusions of everything, and by everything I mean everything, all the things. In Saturn, we see that there's a big illusion that we are given when we incarnate. I believe that is the illusion of separation, right? Of identity and selfness. I think that from the eternal perspective of Zeus, we are temporary manifestations, right? We are temporary manifestations that obtain a selfness within our incarnation, and we experience life as if we were the big deal, you know. But as we go through initiations, we get glimpses of the fact that this is temporary, and especially if you go through a Saturn initiation, you're going to realize that all this stuff that we're doing here is it's illusory in a lot of ways. It's not as real as we like to think it is. It seems really real inside. It feels really real to us, and it might as well be real, right? I mean, there's no reason to pretend like it's not real. I'm not being a nihilist here. However, just because it's real doesn't mean that it's going to be as important in the grand scheme of things as we think it is. There's a thing in the Middle Ages, they always wore these rings that had, it's not just in the Middle Ages, we still do it today, that they wear icons that have a skull on it or some kind of death imagery to remind them that they're going to die. And it's just basically carpe diem, you know, seize the day, because tomorrow you may die. You don't know what's going to happen tomorrow, but remember you're going to die. Remember death, memento mori. Remember that you too will die. And in perspective of that, how bad is what you're experiencing right now, right? How important is what you're experiencing right now is another part of that. You know, like, is it that important? We tend to over dramatize our experiences. We in Buddhism, one of the key things is that attachment leads to suffering. And it's attachment to what? It's attachment to everything, and thinking that this is important. You know, it's the mental attachment. It's the attention that we give this stuff. It's the interactions with it. That's what is our attachment. The ropes that bind us to the things that cause suffering are our attention, our desires, right? this is all my hermetic understanding of this Buddhist concept. I probably shouldn't be doing that, but I am doing it because, I mean, spirituality is spirituality. You know, we are all spirits in human bodies. You know, culturally, we understand where we're coming from as a culture when it comes to spirituality, but my culture is Christianity, you know, and I'm going to talk about Christianity today because it has, I mean, some of the things I'm going to talk about today, the dark night of the soul, is a Christian concept, right? It has to do with Christian mysticism, but I'm not a Christian. I come from a Christian background, but I'm not an active practicing member of that faith, you know. I'm a spirit in a body. And just like everybody else, I'm as real as everything else, right? I mean, I'm as real as President Trump. Everybody knows that person, or I guess we pretend he's real. We see him on TV, right? So he must be real. But I'm as real as you, and you're as real as me, and we have the same. We're the same kind of thing. We're humans. We're both humans here, right? And because we're humans, we have a soul, right? And we have a body, and we have a planet that we're born on that we share, and we have experiences in that planet that we experience through these bodies inside our heads or inside our hearts or inside our spirits, right? Our spirits experience through the bodies all the stuff in the world, right? That's the Zeus the head is sort of the mind. Zeus the middle is sort of the body, and Zeus the all in all is all the stuff out here. The transition point between the mind and the experienced world, the planet, is your body. Your body is the sole vice-regent of the sun upon the face of the earth, is one way to put it. That's from the Gnostic Mass in Thelema. But yeah, we're little cupbearers filled with the sun. All right, that's basically what we are. But anyway, as we go through life, you know, we're told that we can only borrow images and concepts from certain cultures and certain things. And the fact is that we're all human, and ultimately we all have a spirit that longs to interact with this reality and the same divinity. Okay, whatever divinity is real for me is the same divinity that's real for you. Okay, and it's not like because I'm a Christian, I only get to see Jesus, and I cannot experience the divine in any other way but Jesus. You know, and it's not that Buddhists can only experience spirituality through a Buddhist lens. Everything that they experience will be colored by that. Everything I experience will be colored by my early upbringing. That's how life works, right? No big deal. But that doesn't mean I am that, or that I'm stuck with that. Okay, we inform ourselves by borrowing from other people's experiences. That's called being alive. You know, being alive is sharing experiences on the same planet. You know, and being respectful of that is important, and not stealing from one another is important. You know, but sharing and understanding is not stealing. Sharing an idea is not stealing. You know, if I take your idea and I make money off of it, I'm a piece of shit, right? If I take money that should go to you for your ideas, of course I'm a piece of shit. You know, that's not what I'm talking about, though. I'm talking about my spiritual growth. I can borrow other people's ideas. Anyway, thing is, it helps you grow, right? So anyway, in Buddhism, God, I don't know why I go off these stupid tangents. It's the ADHD. I do know why, but it's okay. Yes. So anyway, within these attachments that we have, right, to the things that suffer us, the things that attach us to those things are us paying attention to it, and that's what I wanted to talk about. Is when we're paying attention to things, you know, that's our connection to things, and whatever we're paying attention to the most is what we're the most connected to. Okay, so like in my job, when my job has my full attention, that's what's most important to me, and I don't think about President Trump. And when I'm reading about politics, that's what's most important to me, and I don't think about my wife with what she's doing right now, you know? And when I'm hanging out with my wife, I'm not thinking about what's going on at work, right? You know, what's important to me is what I'm paying attention to, all right? And the things that we are attached to are the things that we pay the most attention to in our lives, right? And that's what that attachment is, that attention. How much attention are you paying to things? Your experiences are bought with the currency of your attention. What you pay attention to is what you get to manifest in your life, right? And the more attention you pay to things that that are it's just the more important they get to you, and you get attached to those things, right? Now, I'm not saying you don't have to pay attention to stuff or whatever, but I do know that if I cut out the news and if I stop reading about politics, I have a better experience when politics are not going my way, right? So that's basically that, and the reason that we suffer is when the things that we're paying attention to aren't following our internal script, right? So we can see this world and we see what we want to have happen, and we know what we think is going to help us. We have our opinions about what's best for us and what kind of world we're going to thrive in, and if we're not getting that, we get upset. That's like being in politics. If I'm not getting the world if my party hasn't won and I'm not going to have democracy anymore, I'm going to have only tyranny, right? That's what it seems like, how upset am I going to be about that, right? I'm pretty upset about it, to be honest. But as a magician, I look at the stars and I see that the stars are in the same place that they were in when we had our last revolution here in America. There's a comet. I don't know if I've been watching this thing Atlas going through our sky, Atlas 131 or 331 or whatever it is. People think it's a spaceship and all this shit, magicians, there's a comet in the sky, a great big comet, huge, bigger than any other comet that we've seen, that's come from unexpected places and is behaving in ways that are not like any other comet. What do comets portend to magicians? Calamity, catastrophe, destruction, despair, the breakdown of civilization, right? We talk about the Kali Yuga, right? And if you come from a Hindu background in this occult tradition that we all kind of share, we talk about the Kali Yuga. It's the idea that we're in the phase where things fall apart, and it's the destruction of things. When you see the Kali with her ring of skulls around her head, around her neck, those are the death of the egos, all the ego deaths, right? It's a spiritual thing. It's also the death of people, right? The Kali Yuga is the death cycle that we're experiencing. Our experiences run on death, right? And a lot of us don't. This is going to get kind of. I don't want to be like triggery about things. I'm going to be careful how I say things. But death is a part of our culture in ways that we don't appreciate. Death and suffering run the global culture. My iPhone, right? Beautiful iPhone. I spent a lot of money on that. I worked hard for that money. Blah blah blah. Whatever. The battery in it was made by some company that took lithium that they got from some company that uses slave labor to mine its lithium, right? We don't know that for sure, and I'm sure Apple will deny it, and maybe they'll be able to prove it, and that would be great. But we know that slave labor is used to make lithium batteries, and in this room right now, I've got probably a dozen things that have lithium batteries in them. I don't know where they came from. In this house, there's so many lithium batteries right now. There's so much lithium in America that didn't come from here, right? That was sourced unethically. It's not just lithium. What's going on in Haiti right now is the result of interference in their politics for generations. Okay? What's going on in Sudan right now is the result of interference in their politics for generations. Okay, and why do we interfere with those politics? Because those are threat areas, and those are areas in our world where if they're not in conflict, if we don't have conflict in the Middle East right now, if there's not a war in Afghanistan or in Iraq or in Gaza, what are we going to do? What do we do without war in the Middle East? Since the fall of the Shah, right? My whole life there's been a war in the Middle East. Our economy is based on that. Okay? Our global economy is based on all these factors being in play that are causing the suffering and the death of millions annually, right? We have to keep these countries poor for the rich to stay rich. And it boils down to the schleps that keep America in power are me in the middle class. I'm upper middle class, but I'm still middle class. And our schleps, me and my fellow schleps, are the ones that keep these idiots in power that grind down the rest of the world. And it feeds the 1%, the less than 1% that control most of the resources in the world. All these puppet governments and stuff, we're grinding away human lives that don't get taken from us locally. They get taken from the poor and the dark-skinned and the oppressed and the people that won't be missed and the foster community, the natives, the indigenous people. Okay, do you know how many women disappeared from the indigenous tribes last year? It's incredible. And they just take them. And where do they go? Where do they disappear to? This is happening. And it has been happening your whole life. My whole life, we've been grinding out civilization on the darkness, on the backs of all these people. You know, it's disgusting. You know, this is a dark time. Anyway, I wanted to talk about the darkness of the soul, but I got off onto politics. I apologize for that. But the fact is that this world is a dark world, okay? And all of our joys that we get out of it, all of our experiences that are kind of fun in the moment, they come at a price. And we don't see the price, so we don't know the price. And the commercials don't tell you the price. And they don't put it in your head. You know, and we live divorced from this reality of our existence and what pressure our existence puts on the people and the land itself, the pressures, the dissonance, the disharmonies that we've created in this world are gonna have consequences, and the consequences are gonna be the death and suffering of millions, and this is happening right now. Okay, there's a meat grinder going on in Ukraine, there's a meat grinder going on in Gaza. There's meat grinders all around the world, okay? And they're trying to do it here in our country now, and it's finally coming down on us, and now we're upset about it. America's finally upset about it because we're doing it to ourselves. They've been doing this to the rest of the world your whole lives, right? So when it comes to, like, I was in an argument the other day, not even an argument, just a conversation about the end of civilization and why some people want to see the end of the world. I would like to turn that around a little bit and say, why don't you want to see the end of the world? All right? The party line is, if the civilization, this global civilization that we have, falls apart tomorrow, what's going to happen? We're all going to starve, right? There's not going to be any food. We're all going to die of illness, right? There's not going to be any medicine. We're all going to go back to dying at 35 because everybody will forget how to have a baby. Women are going to die at 35 again because there won't be civilization anymore because we'll forget everything overnight. And everything will go back to chaos and everybody will die. Everybody will have to die if this civilization falls apart. That's the party line bullshit, you guys. All right, if we all stopped, if we had a general strike, if we had a planetary general strike and we said, nah, absolutely everything would stop. They wouldn't do it anymore because we wouldn't be doing it. We're the ones doing it, you know? ICE doesn't have to go to work to pay the billionaires. They do it anyway because they've been buffooned into it, and because they're mean-spirited, I think. But I mean, we're all mean-spirited. I'm not judging any of those people for doing what they're doing. They're just dupes, you know. And everybody who's mad about it, you're also dupes. We're all dupes. We're all upset about it, you know. And they're still getting rich. The billionaires are still getting rich while we're angry. While we're losing our rights and we're fighting for it. They're just sitting there reaping the profits. You know? And until the blue side and the red side agrees that what's for supper is billionaires, we're all going to be fucked, right? So anyway, that's how I feel about politics. Speaking of Dark Night of the Soul. So anyway, if you're like me and you think about that kind of shit too much, you can get into a dark spot, right? It's easy to do. It's the Kali Yuga, right? Yeah, and if you're into like keeping society going, you know, and you don't want to see the fall of society because you think all this shit's going to go bad, I don't agree with you. First of all, I think that the world's going to be fine. If we all stop doing all these terrible things to one another, I think that we would be okay, and we just would have to deal with not being mean to each other anymore. It wouldn't be that hard. I don't think we're going to do it anytime soon. I think that what's going to really happen is we're all going to have death and suffering, and it's going to come home to roost with all of us. And it's not going to be done overseas anymore, you know, and we're going to all have to deal with the fact that we're assholes, you know, and our assholery will no longer be delivered on the poor and the downtrodden. Our assholery will be delivered to our own selves, and we're going to have to deal with it. And I think the people who are in a position where they are defending the existence of society are benefiting more from it personally, to the point where they can't see that they are hurting other people anymore, right? They can't see it. They don't understand the extent of the evil in place in the world today. Bottom line. Now, how does that relate to the dark night of the soul? You look at that shit and you're going to despair, right? I mean, honestly, you look at it and you're like, why do we do all this stuff? If you're like 18,000 years, we've been human beings. Our brains haven't changed. If you look at evolution, the brain is the same brain that our human 18,000 year ancestors had. Okay, our falling in love, 18,000 years of it, right? Innovation, creation, art, culture, arguments with your in-laws, ideas about how society works and doesn't work, right? You look at Hawaii, what did they do? Hawaii was ruled by inbred people. The more inbred you were, the higher ranked you were. That was the rulership, was marrying brothers and sisters. That was like the thing, and fathers and daughters, and mothers, and it's that was the thing for their elite. People have tried all kinds of stuff to make things work, to figure out what we can do physically to mirror whatever ideas we have in our minds. We've been trying to fix this shit, okay? And what we end up with are all these cycles of oppression and liberation, and oppression and liberation, and these periods of liberation in between these periods of oppression, and it doesn't seem to work out for everybody all the time. It seems like it comes and it goes, and it's in cycles. So when I look at all that 18,000 years of history and I see what's going on right now, it's easier for me to not despair, because I see that the sorrow that comes from it is personal. It's ego-based, right? I'm sad because I'm going to lose my civilization. I won't have internet anymore. I'm not going to be sad about that. I'll be happy with that. I'll be fine. I mean, I don't know if you guys watch the videos I do, but you can go out in the woods and build a house, and it's like, well, who's going to let you to build on their land? Guys, come on. It's not like that. I don't think it's going to be like that. I really don't think it's going to be like that. I'm not living in some utopian dream or whatever. It's just what I see happening in LA and Oregon and Chicago and all around the world, Anyway, I have faith. I have faith and hope that we're going to get through all this stuff and it's not going to be as bad. But also, if you look back at it over 18,000 years, it comes and it goes. And our attachment to American modern society and the modern society that America has given the rest of the world, or forced the rest of the world to accept, right? Because China doesn't want to be what China is, and Russia doesn't want to be what Russia is, but Russia and China became the Russia and China they are right now over the last 80 years in relation to America being what it was, right? And we have the world we have because we are the way we are, and it's this ongoing exploration of how to do things. Is it communism? Is it totalitarianism? Is it going to be democracy? What's going to work the most, So far, I don't see anything working in a way that doesn't result in tyranny, right? And dictatorships, and I don't know. I don't know where we end up with, But what our religious teachings teach us, what the Mayan civilization taught us, and what the Buddhist and the Hindu cycles teach is that it's cycles, it's cyclical, and there's times of chaos and there's times of peace. Even Iresians believe in the ongoing process from chaos back to chaos. In the Dervani manuscript, it talks about how Zeus, Gaia came out of chaos and emanated Uranus, and they had sex, and he wouldn't let her have her children, so she had him killed, and then Kronos took over, and there was a whole new world when Kronos took over, and it was a different age, and everything was different, but Kronos and Rhea had a lot of sex, and he wouldn't let her have her babies either. He swallowed them, so she had him killed. Right? So this is this cycle of rulership and emanation and replacement of our experiences and the background of our experiences, that's part of our culture because it's cellular and it's biological and it's natural and it's part of the cycles of Earth. Right? That's my belief anyway. That's the way I see it. The dark night of the soul is part of that too. Our spiritual journey is going to include these dark times. Okay, and hopefully on purpose. Okay, so let's look at what the dark night of the soul really is. Okay, the term itself refers to that bleak, black, dark spot in your planetary growth cycle where you're becoming more and more aware of what you can become and what you are, and you can see what you've done so far and how that impacted the world, and what you're going to do and how that's going to impact the world, and how ultimately it all is going to disappear at some point, and you begin to feel like it's a lot of work and it's not appreciated by anybody else, and you yourself are the only one that benefits from it, really, and you yourself are the only one that suffers through all of it, and nobody appreciates and understands your suffering. You feel sorry for yourself, and you feel really sorry for yourself. That's one part of the black night of the soul, dark night of the soul. The other parts are like when it boils down to a lot of different ways of looking at ego death, right? Originally it was a Christian concept. It came from Spain. There was some monk or something, a priest, that wrote about how as you become closer to Christ, your old self dies. You have to die to yourself, right? And there's this whole thing in the Christian concept where you die to yourself, and as you do, you become closer to Christ. And it's letting go of the things that you're attached to, is what he's talking about in a Christian way. It's the same, in my opinion. It's a very similar concept to being attached to the things that make you suffer here in Buddhism, right? And it's getting rid of these attachments. And as you lose these things, you feel like, oh, I don't have this money anymore, and I don't have this partner anymore, and I don't have this car anymore, I don't have this lifestyle anymore. And in Christianity, the idea was that God takes those things away from you so that you rely only on God, and you learn to rely only on God, right? I don't believe that's how it works, okay? But that despair is all very materialistic, and it makes sense that Christians would see it that way. When Crowley got a hold of it, he wrote John St. John, and he converted it. He took his Christian upbringing and his understanding of the dark night of the soul, and he took it and he applied it to the alchemical process of transformation, and he equated it with Negredo, and I agree with him on that. I think that the thing that the Christians are talking about, if they're doing a true spiritual practice, and the thing that happens in the alchemical phase of Negredo is the same kind of thing. And Aleister Crowley says that it's what happens when you cross the abyss, right? When you his thing was you attain knowledge and conversation with the holy guardian angel. You do all these studies. You do the initiations through the spheres leading up to Tifereth. You go through your Dominus Liminis, or whatever it's called, in the Golden Dawn, and you take your initiation, and then you've built up all this momentum with your spiritual practices. The holy guardian angel has helped fuel you and project you forward, and then you're on your own, and the holy guardian angel abandons you, and you're left in the abyss, and you hope that the work that you've done up to that point when you take the leap is enough to propel you all the way across, so that you land in Bina, or whatever. I think it's Bina. You land in Bina, and you're like, or maybe it's Kether. I don't know, whatever. If you're going up the middle path, I guess it would be Kether, but if you're going up the lightning path, it would be Bina when you cross the abyss, I think. But anyway, the thing is you cross the abyss, and it's dark and it's scary, and you're all alone. And that's the thing, is it's dark and it's scary, and you feel all alone. And if you've been so, like, I'm bipolar, and I get SAD, SADD, the seasonal affective disorder, dysfunction disorder or something. Anyway, it's when it gets fall time, my cycles go, and I get really depressed, right? And it's like all the darkest thoughts that you can imagine. That's exactly what I go through, and it happens every year right about this time. I was looking at my memories on Facebook, and all these things. It said, remember 6 years ago you were sad too. I'm like, oh yeah, okay, thanks Facebook. I needed to be reminded of that. But it's true. I get sad this time of the year, and this morning I woke up and I was just like going over everything I did this year, and like what was a success and what didn't work out the way I wanted it to, and where I was going to be next. And I was just like, do I really want to keep doing all this stuff, and how much work I spent on everything? And that's what really got to me today was how hard it all was. This was a hard ass year. I worked my ass off, and I didn't, I was able to make my rent 1 month, and I was working, I want to say like 120 hour weeks. And I was busting my ass out there, and I made it. I made my rent, made my bills. I made it through a month, but my God, that's no way to live. And it's like, yeah, I had to reconsider it. So the dark night of the soul is where you go through and you look back over everything you've done and everything you're going to do and everything you're doing right now. And you look at the pros and the cons and the successes and the failures. And it's like in autumn, you've done your work for the summer, your farm came in, you've harvested your harvest, and you look at it and you're like, all right, the peas came in, the corn was okay, potatoes, oh my God, what did I do with the potatoes, And it's like you have to figure out what you're going to do to get through the winter based on what you've got so far. That's what the dark night of the soul is. It's your autumn harvest review and your inventory for the winter to come and how you're going to get through the winter. Okay, that's what your dark night of the soul is. One part of it. Another thing that happens is when you're going through these initiations, the heat of the sun is drawing out the impurities as you become more pure. All right, and what that happens in your real life is if you're in therapy, hopefully, you're talking about all this stuff as it comes up with your therapist, and you have these dark thoughts, and you talk to your therapist about it, and you're able to work through it, with them or whatever. If you're not in therapy and you're not able to have a buffer zone between emotional troubles and turmoils and your daily life, you're going to be expressing these negative things that are coming up in relation to the sphere around you. So like if you're in a relationship and you're doing Venus work and it turns out that you had some stuff you weren't thinking about and you haven't really articulated it, you might find yourself living out the darkness so that you can deal with it appropriately. That's not fair to anybody. It's not fair to your partner or anybody else. It's depressing too, right? When you realize that that's what you're doing, when you feel like, oh my God, I'm such a shit. My spiritual practice is even trying to be better hurts other people. It was one of my big problems, like even when I try to do good, it hurts, and it's like, why do I even bother, and that's a big part of it is why do I even bother, It's a sadness. It's a deep sadness, like what's the point? I call it nihilism. Like, nah. You want to get out of bed? Nah. I'm a nihilist today. I don't feel like doing it. And it's just the introspection, retrospection, looking back at what you've done and feeling like it just wasn't enough. Generally, is how it feels. Or so a lot of that is, so we're talking about ego death. When we're talking about the spiritual transformation that results in the dark night of the soul, it's an ego death. In the same way that the year dies in autumn and goes into winter, your ego is dying. All right, in shamanism, they talk about the shamanic death trip, right? And the shamanic death trip is the trip that you take where you die, right? And you physically feel like you're dying, right? And they have rituals where they bury you in graves if you're going into this stuff. A friend of mine in South America he does a whole retreat where they end up, doing drugs and burying you, and you deal with your problems. They have sigils over you, Saturn sigils, and they use hermetics and all the ritual. It's intense what they have you do, but you come out of it and you're reborn. You're not the same person anymore, right? But that ego death, right? It's that death, right? And when I say you come out of it and you're not yourself anymore, you're not the same person anymore. You're still yourself. Okay, all this stuff that we go through. I've been through so many phases of my initiation, right? And like every phase, I thought, oh my God, I was such a shit. I won't be that anymore, And then I go through the next phase and I'm like, oh my God, I'm still a shit. And I won't be it anymore, And then like later on you find out you're still a shit. And it's like, oh, well, I won't be anymore, Or else it's just depressing. It's just super depressing. Like, oh, what's the point? I keep finding out that I'm a shit. But you're not the same kind of shit. You're not as bad as you used to be. And you're going to keep getting better. Each time you become more and more yourself. All right, and I'm not talking about that came out wrong. I shouldn't have talked about being a shit, and then I say you're more and more yourself. It's not that. You become a more purified version of yourself every time. Okay, it's like I can't think of a really good metaphor for it. I'll just tell you what happens. So it's without being metaphorical. Your bad stuff dissolves and it floats to the surface, and then most of it burns off, but then some of it remains, right? And then other parts come out, right? So you still got some of the old and some of the new bad stuff, right? And that's just how it is, right? And you're constantly getting rid of it. But when the ego self dies, when that death comes, it's the nigredo phase of the great work, and you get rid of that blackness by burning it off, right? The white phase comes when the sticky black tar has been exposed to the heat so long it becomes a thick black substance, and then it gets more heat, and then it becomes a charcoal, and then that charcoal becomes ash, and it turns white to smoke and ash, and it's purified. Then it's just carbon at that point. There's nothing left. It's gone, right? That's the purification phase. But it has to turn black before it turns white, right? Before you have to go through that nigredo phase. After you've been through a lot of ego deaths, and you realize that nothing ever dies. All right, Kali has that string of skulls around her head. Our civilization has risen and fallen time and time again. We've had thousands of people born in joyful celebration after World War II, after millions of people died in a camp, right? This darkness and this light, it's always coming and going, and it's going to happen again. Okay, it's not fun, and it's not okay, and it's not like pleasant to go through, and I'm not advocating that it's good. I'm saying it's inevitable, and it is what it is, right? There's nothing you can do about it. There are just some big things that just happen, This assume that we have a tyranny in America now. Like, I'm not saying we do. Okay, honestly, we're still a democracy, and a lot of our fears and concerns on the left are overblown and overhyped by the right because they need us to think that they're invincible and it's inevitable and all this stuff. But we're still in a democracy, and we still have judges, and there's still 48% of us who voted blue, right? It's the same country we were in before. We're just like sitting here in shock and awe going, what? But there's still just as many of us as there always were, okay? And it's just, it's a made up thing to worry about. But even if the things that we're most afraid of on the left were true, if it was a tyrannical dictator, what are we going to do? There's going to be a war, and there's going to be people fighting about it, and we're going to have to live through that. Or there's not going to be a war, and people will just go along with it, and we'll have to live with that, right? Or we just wait for him to die, right? Because, sooner or later, all these fascist governments, they either die out, the populist leader dies, they're overthrown by the military, usually, if they've been voted in, or they're if they violently try to get in, then there's usually a violent get rid of them. But that's not what's happening. They were voted in here in America. So chances are, even if Trump takes over and becomes dictator for life, it's going to be like, his life he's 80 years old. How long is that? How long is that going to be? And it's like, you got to think about all that stuff, right? And in the context of history, it's happened so many times, right? Life goes on, you guys, whether we like it or not. Life goes on, whether we like what's going on today. Suffering is going to happen. It will happen. The Holocaust was supposed to never happen again, and now the people that suffered the Holocaust are perpetrating a genocide in Gaza. What? It's not just that people don't learn from other people's mistakes or other people's suffering. They don't learn from their own suffering. It's despairing. It's downright despairing. So what do we do? What do we do? When I say that's life, right? That's how life is, and it's a cycle of life. You gotta remember what life is, okay? Life is light in the darkness. In the Greek mythology, out of chaos first came darkness, night. Night is the first goddess who emerged from chaos. The darkness came first. All right? The darkness was there before the sun. All right? When the sun goes, or when the earth turns, as it goes around the sun, it looks like the sun is rising and setting in the east and west, right? When the sun is there, we have daylight. When the sun is gone, it's dark. The dark is there the whole time. Okay? The dark doesn't go away when it's light. You just don't see it anymore. All right, when we had the idea that we had a good civilization going where everybody was going better, and someone tried to tell me that the numbers were going down, the numbers of global death were going down, and all these things were going down. But in the process, what was happening? The suffering was going up. The suffering was going up. There wasn't joy. The amount of joy goes down. In proportion, it wasn't worth it in the grand scheme of things. The return on investment in terms of blood and suffering, I don't think it was worth it. I don't think it was sustainable. We didn't accelerate enough to overcome the trajectory of failure as a society, in my opinion. And I think that this culture is going to have to collapse, and new cultures are going to have to rise up out of it, just like what happened with Rome. And it's going to be okay. Not for us, not for the short term, but eventually, for some people, some of the time, it'll be all right again. And that's just how it is. Right now, it's not okay for everybody. It's okay for some people. There's bubbles of comfort and luxury and cesspools of suffering and misery, That's how it's going to be. It's how it always is. Why is it like that? It builds character. That is the most stupidest thing, isn't it? It turns out that that's what we have to work with in this world. Right? Challenges exist, suffering exists to be overcome, according to the Zeus-related materials that I've researched. You get into it, and when you get into like these pre-Socratics, and they talk about darkness and light and all this stuff, and good and evil, and why people are right about things and why they're wrong about things, and how we get into harmony and out of harmony. And what they came up with, their solution to everything was out of suffering comes wisdom, right? And they're talking about how you learn not to burn yourself when you burn yourself, by burning yourself. You burn your hand, you don't grab the hot pan anymore, right? Wisdom comes through suffering. Until the wisdom comes, the suffering remains, all right? Evil exists to be overcome. When it rises up, it's just an opportunity for the forces of light to marshal their forces and do something about it. And that's just how it is. There's going to be forces of light in this present darkness. There are forces of light in the present darkness all around the world right now, in fact, right? Because it's life. And what is life? Life is the temporary embodiment of the sun. Okay, the energy that we use to move our hands around and run my little mouth and all my thoughts and vocalizations, that energy comes from the sun, right? The pure forces of solar power are what keep our planet moving and what keep or living, breathing. Everything that lives relies on sunlight. That's the catalyst for existence. We are embodiments of the force of the sun passing through our cells, right? The outcome of the sun is our life. We are life, right? We are temporary in the same way that sunlight on the face of the earth is temporary. The darkness is eternal. Our lives are temporary. Our light that we bring to this world is temporary, right? That's okay. That's all right. That's part of how it works, right? But when the light is here, it shines. That's what we're here to do, is to shine against the darkness, to illuminate the things that are hidden in the dark, to understand it, to bring it into the light so that we can understand it, comprehend it, experience it, see it, be with it, know it, enjoy it. ennoble it. Do art with it, create with it. That's what the sun is. That's what the sun is for. And we are embodiments of the sun, right? And when we fast into the darkness, the way out of it, which is what I'm trying to get to, is the sun, right? Because we are the sun's light in extension. Okay, so yeah, so when the sun in mythology, like the sun used to go into Hades, right? Every day the sun would go down into hell. The little beetle would roll the sun across the sky all day, and then it would roll it underground all night long, and that was the midnight sun. And when the sun was underground, it was illuminating the underworld, right? So in the Greek mythology, in the underworld, we have Hecatonchires, right? The 100-handed entities that were in was it in Tartarus or was it just in Hades? Anyway, it was underground. It was in the underworld. Was where Cronus put the ugly titans, the Cyclopes, the Hecatonchires, right? The brothers and sisters of Hecate, or the brothers of Hecate. Hecate was the sister of those guys. When she helped Zeus defeat the Titans, she helped Zeus by, in my opinion, this isn't canon, but she's the one that has the keys to the underworld, right? And it was the Cyclopes and the Hecatonchires from the underworld who were released, who helped Zeus, and it was Hecate who received the portions of sky, earth, and sea that were hers rightfully. She was a Titan that got to keep all that stuff, right, for her support of Zeus after the Titanomachy was over. So I think it's pretty clear what happened there. There's only so many ways to get the beings of hell out of the beings out of hell, right? So anyway, yeah. So when the sun is going into the underworld, it illuminates and reveals the sources that we need to overcome the struggles that we face outside of ourselves. All right, so spiritually speaking, the dark night of the soul can feel really bad, right? Because we're looking at all these dark things, and it's super depressing, and you end up like feeling nihilistic. At least I do. I look at the history of humankind and the rise and fall of civilizations, and the greed and hypocrisy of the people who are defending civilization. It gets on my nerves, especially when it's coming from me. I'm not innocent here in any of this stuff, for sure. And I acknowledge my guilt, and I try to not do that stuff anymore, but there's just what are we supposed to do? How much can we do about it? As magicians, we have to realize that all that stuff isn't what we're supposed to be attached to, right? So detach your attention from the things that are temporary and overwhelming is one thing that you can do to get rid of this stuff. That's the first step, I think, is most important, is get a little perspective. The way to get perspective on the situation is time. Okay, time is the thing, right? But the sun is how you're going to illuminate what's going on, all right? And the darkness that you're feeling is because all the darkness inside of you has been boiled out to the surface, or the darkness in the outside world is starting to overcome you. Either way, the darkness gets overcome by the light. You are life. You are living light. Okay, our cells, they can put your cells under these photosensors now, and your brain cells emit light. Our cells emit light when we're alive. We are light incarnate. Our cells emit it. We are sunlight, right? When we're overwhelmed by the darkness, we need to bring more of that light forward, okay? The sun in Greek mythology, when Zeus swallowed they call it the phallus of Uranus, right? And it's not a phallus. And in the Derveni manuscript, the guy that wrote the Derveni manuscript was very offended by the idea that people think that Zeus was eating dicks. But apparently, he didn't want them to think they were eating dicks. So he said, where does he say it? All right, so since in his whole talking about Orpheus, since in his whole poetry he speaks about the facts enigmatically, one has to speak about each word in turn. Seeing that people consider that generation is dependent upon the genitalia, and that without the genitals there is no becoming, he used this word, likening the sun to a phallus. For without the sun, and this is a part I wanted to quote for real, for without the sun, the things that are, you and me, could not have become such. things that are get their nourishment and the energy that becomes their form and substance from the sun in everything. Okay, this is from the Derveni manuscript. This is like 450 BC. Okay, I'm not making this stuff up. I'm saying all these words. But they're the same words that the people who have been in on the mystery have been saying the whole time. Okay, and the mystery is that we're the light in extension. We are Luke's tenebris, but Luke's on tenebris. I can't remember the phrase. We're light in extension. Conks on pox, right? We're trying to do the light thing against the dark background. We're illuminating things. The reason I like this little eye in the triangle thing is because it's the Illuminati symbol. That's what we're trying to do. We're illuminating things with our inner light. Okay? So anyway, when the dark night of the soul comes on us, the solution is more sun. Okay? More sun is always the answer to the darkness. Okay? And I'll talk about the depression part in a minute, but like when it's forces of darkness that are external to yourself, it's easy to direct the sun at it, right? Blast fireball. It's the solar fireball at the darkness. It's to illuminate the darkness. But the bigger transformation that needs to happen usually is when these darknesses are coming from inside of ourselves, right? And it's like an initiation to Venus brings up all your bad memories of your exes or whatever, or initiations into the sun, brings up all your bad, everything bad you've ever said to other people that hurt their feelings or kept them from expressing their light. You might have to deal with all that, or all the things that you've done to yourself to darken your path. You have to deal with the obstacles that you create for yourself that keep you in darkness. These are the kind of things that come up in this stuff, right? But the sun is what takes you past it too, right? You do these initiations and it draws the impurities to the surface, but the sun is where we get our heat to transform these things into prosperity, joy, pleasant experiences, understanding that in spite of the fact that all these evils are going on, there's kindness, that you are the one that can bring the water to the immigrant who just walked across the desert, that you're the one that can put the water bottles out alongside the road, that you're the one that can bring the blankets to the people who are unhomed, that you're the one that can bring the drug stuff to the people that are overdosing. You're the one that can help. You're the one that is the light that stands against the darkness. You're the one that can protest against ICE. You're the one that can put a traffic cone over a tear gas thing and put water over it to keep it from hurting people. You're the one that can bomb yourself with, I'm not talking about anything violent, but you can throw yourself at people like a human bomb to interact with. Oh God, I gotta stop saying that. Anyway, dangerous times. That's not what I meant. But you can interfere. You can be the line that interferes with the oppression, right? When darkness rears its ugly head, it's on us to shine, right? And as magicians, we have access to turning up the light, all right? And that's basically what I wanted to talk the most about today. Oh wait, I want to say something else. So the sun being, all right, going back to the Derveni manuscript, without the sun, the things that are would not have become such. Things that are get their nourishment and the energy that becomes their form and substance. That's the part I wanted to talk about. We're light and extension, right? The light becomes our form and substance. Okay, and that's what the cells emitting light under these photons is all about. The light of the sun has literally become our form and our substance. All right, our substance is what fills the form. Okay, our physical flesh, but also the power of our ability to observe and interact with everything is from the sun. All right, and we have that and the access to that as long as we're alive. They can't cut you off from the light as long as you have breath. You are light. You are the sun. Okay, at the very end of the day, no matter what life you've had, when you're ready to turn your back on the darkness and pursue the light, the path in is the path through, because you are the embodiment of the light. This whosoever therefore shall know themselves shall know all things in themselves. This little thing over here that I'm always talking about, that's the key to the light, is knowing yourself, knowing your path to your core, your source. The reason all these people are unhappy in life, and the reason you've been unhappy in life previously, is because you weren't pursuing your source. All right, the closer you get to that thing, the closer you are to yourself, to understanding yourself, and not in an egotistical way, in a way that doesn't need the ego, in a way that understands the ego is also a tool that you're using, a tool that you're purifying so that you can use it more purely and more efficiently and more effectively. That's what the great work does. It makes you better at doing the things that you're trying to do in this world with yourself. You're developing a sharper tool, and it's you. You're developing a clearer laser lens, and it's you, to focus the light, to burn the things that you want to burn, to engrave the things you want to engrave, right? To measure the distance between what you want to measure the distance between. Whatever a laser gets used for, I don't care. It's just, you're the thing that we're working on with the great work. It's us, right? But we're the light, the substance too. We're that light. So when we feel down, and we feel dark and overwhelmed and depressed and sad and upset and angry and nihilistic, and what's the point? Like me, I give up. I give up all the time. That's my secret. How do you keep fighting? I don't. I quit. I hate it. And I'm just like, this sucks. I quit. I'm done. But when I quit, the moment after I quit, I take another breath. Right? I'm still alive. I can't help but shine. Right? It doesn't matter when the ego dies, when you give up, when you're done. You take another breath. It's light. We are light. We are the light inside, right? I don't know how to explain it, but it's very important. Anyway, if you're feeling too down and dark on things, do a solar rite, okay? Do the solar magic. Bless other things. So I want to talk a little bit about what that looks like. Strength. I want to talk about strength real quick. Strength belongs to the strongest in the way that a son belongs to his father. This is also from the Dervani manuscript. The strength belongs to the strongest, right? If you look at people who are strong and work out, they are strong, and the strength of the strongest belongs to them. It's their strength. In the same way that a son belongs to their father, right? So when and this is like ancient Greek, it must be that they own their children like property. No, it's just like us. Like when I say my son, that's my son. He belongs to me. It's not my son. It's the offspring of me that I engendered. I engendered that, and that's what he's saying. He says the son is the source of transformation, right? I'm sorry, no, that's me. I said that. The sun get their nourishment, energy that becomes the form and substance from the sun, and everything, right? So everything is from the sun, right? So the physical, the offspring of a person belongs to the parent, right? The strength belongs to the strong in the same way that the offspring, right? It's the offspring of your work, right? The strongest own the strength. The strength is the offspring of the strongest because they are the father of it, in the same way that this phallic imagery was used to represent the sun, right? The genitalia, because they thought, and this is what the Dervani manuscript guy said, he said, without the genitalia, there is no becoming, because of that, Orpheus used that word, likening the sun to a phallus, right? Because the sun is the source of our stuff. And in the same way that the father of the strong are the father of their own strength, right? The sun is the father of our own life, right? In the same way that we're alive, we are the offspring of the sun. And we are the life of the sun. But anyway, that's sort of how it works. Life is living. The sun is a source of light. The light passing through the air into ourselves is the way we keep living, right? Luminous beings are we. Yeah, so this, all right, so strength belongs to the strongest in the way that son belongs to the father. The son is the father's get, and the strength is the strongest's get, right? So you get strength from being the strongest get the strength by making it themselves. They created their own strength, is what I'm trying to say. All right. In that way, the sunlight, we have to create our own sunlight, and we create our own sunlight by being that sunlight. We recognize that that's what we are, and we do the solar rites to create more sunlight, and that's how we have more light to work with. When you have a dark life, you need to bring light to it, and you do that with solar work, is sort of what I'm trying to say here. You do magic. Magic is a solution that I have to offer for just about every problem that ails us. So the sun is the source of transformation. You use a solar rite ritual to tap into this heat and light to transform your darkness and find the light through the long dark. The long dark. Okay, so here in the Pacific Northwest, every year, the sun goes away. It goes back down to Australia where it belongs, and it hangs out down south of the equator for a few months, 6 months or so, and then it starts coming back. And that is the ideal time to live here, in my opinion. However, it is very dark, and you get very few hours of daylight, and people get very sad. And it kicks off, if you're bipolar like me, it kicks off your depression. It kicks off your seasonal affective disorder, whatever, sad. It does all those things, right? And the way to combat that natural thing is to remember that the sun itself comes back in the spring, comes back every year. It's cyclical. It's okay. And then darkness times, the sun is in the dark, right? It's on the dark side in the underworld. It's illuminating your strength. So spend that time doing solar rites to find your strength, to fight off the darkness, and to reestablish your life, right? So some things to do for that. If you're having regrets, right? If you're having this dark night of the soul, if you find yourself in a dark night of the soul, and it's based on regrets, one of the things you can do is think about what it is that makes you so regretful. What did you do that you regret that led to this situation, right? And then ask yourself, are you still doing it, right? Is it something that you're actively producing in your life to create more sorrow and suffering, or is it something that you've stopped doing, right? Are you still doing it? If you're still doing it, how do you stop? Saturn rites can help you stop, but another way is to throw it into the fires of the sun, right? You do a solar rite and you ask Michael the Archangel and the four spirits to release all of this negative energy and transform it into its purest form so that you can reconstitute those noble elements into your life, healed and as a resource that brings light to the world instead of darkness. You say that kind of thing out loud to these spirits and they do it for you, right? If you're not still doing that behavior, right, what do? Why are you feeling bad about it? You're not doing that anymore. You stopped. Forgive yourself and move on. Throw that guilt into the fire, right? Do you owe someone for what you've done wrong? Did you harm someone? Make amends, right? If you can't make amends without causing more problems, bless the fuck out of them, okay? That's what I had to do with a lot of people who won't talk to me because of the things I did to them when I was being an asshole. I used to be a big douche. We were talking about popularity in the occult the other day. Somebody says to me, you're right on the edge of coming back. I'm like, coming back to what? Being popular with occultists again? I don't want that. I don't want that. That's the community of occultists are I don't want to be popular amongst those people, because to be popular, you have to be a douche. The people who are most popular are most often douchebags. If you look, we were talking about E.A. Quetting, who was arrested for methamphetamines, right? I mean, and had a gun and stuff. He was being a douche. He was not being a cool person, and he was using his popularity to be a douche at the time. I don't know what he's doing these days. I'm not condemning him. I don't care. I was a douche too. I was a alcoholic douche. I was all up in my bourbon all the time, posting shit and starting trouble, right? I was a douche. People loved it. People ate it up. Oh my God. Starting fights with other occultists. People love that. Drama. It's entertainment. It's not wisdom. It's not practical use. It's argument, ego posturing, and it's drama. And it's just like watching as the world turns, right? That's what the occult is. Will Moore is hilarious because he makes fun of it. because it's fucking ridiculous. Here are all these absurd fucking magicians, the power of, oh, I know everything. I'm gonna freak out about everything all day long. I do it all the time. I don't take myself seriously, but other people do. You can always tell they're a serious magician because they have no sense of humor at all. They don't see how silly they are. If we're powerful and illuminated, why are we so upset all the time? Why are we so angry? The best and brightest of us are pretty upset with how things are and have a lot of opinions about what people are doing. Shut up. Shut up, you guys. We aren't that great. We're not that, whatever. It's ridiculous. But anyway, I don't want that. I don't want to be popular in the community. That's not why I do this stuff, right? And don't get me wrong, there's a lot of popular people in the community that are not like that, right? I'm saying that about the extremes, like specifically in the conversation they brought up two of my least favorite people as examples of who were popular and all this stuff, and I'm like, oh my gosh, you got to be kidding me. But if that's the kind of popularity you want, and that's what I realized when we were having that conversation, is I don't want that popularity, that's just it. But anyway, a lot of that darkness that I've had to go through in life was like trying to figure out why I feel so sad that people don't like me, and having to transform that it's a thing. Let's see. I took the plunge and embraced weed witch. Right on. Okay, I have not been reading the comments because I get distracted a lot. But all right, before I get to the comments, oh, yes. So anyway, if you feel guilty about things, getting back to the point, if you're feeling guilty about things, throw that into the fire, right? Write out what it is that you feel bad about and put it in there and burn it. Burn it in a solar rite. Conjure Michael and ask him to take away all the guilt from it and bless those people that you harmed and let you move on with your life, transform it into money. Okay, this is the thing about the sun. You guys, the sun transforms all of this pain and shit into whatever you want it to, right? I always ask for it to be returned to the purest, most noble forms, that are most useful and lucrative to me, right? Money, you guys. I want money. I want cash that I can invest in things. But it's prosperity and it's resources and it's time and attention and stuff that you didn't have before. It returns those things to you in ways that you can use, right? And all of our suffering. One of the wisdom things that I've come to as a result of all my great work is that every piece of suffering that we endure can be turned into profit through the power of the sun, right? It can be a spiritual profit, a mental profit, an emotional profit, but usually a financial profit, okay? It's just how the world works. If you want to make money off of anything, you can make money off of it. Someone will buy it. You just have to find out who wants it or how to use it in a way that people do want it, in a way that is entertaining, usually. Entertainment is the way to make money. If you really want to entertain a rock star money, you got to be an entertainer, That's Venus, by the way. Venus is who you want for that. She's the one that is good at rock star money stuff. Anyway, so transform your personal darknesses into things that bring you the resources that you need to express your light more purely and more effectively. In the long dark, in the next few months, it's good to have a set of projects, right? Do something to shine yourself into your life a little bit every day. Okay, so I do daily chants. That helps a lot because every day I visualize the light of the source, the mind, the Nuos mind, the Zeus, the all in all. Zeus the head is beaming his light through me into this world around me where I experience it and beam it back. I am the lens through which it passes. I do that every day. That helps a lot. I don't have the same kind of darkness. And if I am having a dark morning like I did today, by the time I'm done with the mantra, chant, whatever you want to call it, I'm feeling a lot better. I've managed to transform some of that darkness in a way that reminds me that I'm in control of my life. It helps a lot. I'm not in control. I'm not in control of my life. I am in control of the influences I can direct at my experiences, right? I can decide what I can do to, what I can throw into the pool to see what comes out of it. That's the extent of my ability. Another thing you can do, this is something I started doing not yesterday. I started doing this about, I want to say a couple of years ago, but yesterday I was doing it again, and I'm right now I'm calling it demasking. I don't know if it's the right term for it, but you know, in pop psychiatry right now, pop psychology, it's pretty common to hear people talk about masking, and it's like it's this autistic thing, but it's not just autists. Everybody does it. It's where you fake pretend that you're normal so that you can get through a situation, right? Um, Fake pretending is just, it's a social construct, and it's a way to not have to get punished for not being what other people want you to be, or to get what you want because they're not going to give it to you because of who you really are. You know, it's like pretending to be something so you can get what you want, or pretending to be something so you don't get hurt, right? Those are the two reasons for me anyway that I end up having these masks. Dropping those masks is a psychological, mental, meditational, spiritual experience, okay? And if you sit and meditate and picture yourself relieving yourself of all your masks one at a time, I release the mask that I have for society. I release the mask I have for work. I release the mask I have for my partner. I release the mask I have for my whatever, you know, all these external things. You go through your external life, everything that you can think about outside yourself, and then you do the internal side. You know, I release the mask I have about my whatever, you know, sexuality. I release the mask I have about my ambition. I release the masks I have about my drive in life. I release the masks I have about why I want to do things, you know, right? And you release those things until you are just able to see what it is that's driving you and motivating you, right? But keep going, right? And okay, so this is a part where it gets more spiritual, I think, in my mind, right? Once you get past those things, you can have a lot of interesting experiences and end off on these rabbit trails down your mind. But if you keep going past that, and this is a part where I think it gets really useful in terms of dealing with the big dark, the big dark. And by that I mean the big dark, right? Uh, you keep going past the motivations, past the ideas of self and desire, and you release the mask of need, of want, right? You release all of your attachments, and I don't know how to explain how to do any of that, right? It's just a mental thing where you're just like, and you just picture it evaporating until all that's left is that light. You know, you can picture your body dissolving around you into light. You can picture all these things you want, but it's unmasking. And I want to use that word in particular because these constructs that we have are what keep us from being pure us. The great work is establishing a way to be as much us through the masks of us to manifest what it is that our signal is all about, our purity, our frequency that we incarnated to share with this world, or to bring to the planet, or to test out on this run, or whatever. I believe in reincarnation. I think that we come back over and over again, and in between lifetimes, that part of us which was evil has to suffer, and that part of us which was good has to be pleasant. You know, has to have a good time with things, according to Ea of the guy that got buried in corpses for 3 days back in the old days. Anyway, he came back with a vision. That's what happens in between lifetimes. I like that idea. I'm going with it. But I remember my past lives, you know. I know I've been here before. I at least I think I do, or I have experiences that would support such a thing, you know. I don't know. It's a self still that incarnates, right? This idea of self. And I'm talking about trying to get down to past even that. Okay, like Zeus the head, Zeus the middle, Zeus the all in all. Zeus the head is the source, the noetic mind, right? The head, the source of everything, from which all the ideas that we experience as experiences, or all the people that we experience as ourselves or others, all the spirits we experience as magicians, those are all things that are coming out of the noetic mind, right? And if you look at things on the quantum level and in science, science is looking for that bottom fundamental level. The Stervany manuscript guy talks about atoms in his I read the whole manuscript recently, and it's disconnected because all I read was the text this time. I didn't read all the filler that people tried to, no interpretations, just the pure raw translation of just what exists. And it's interesting to see how they came to the conclusions that they came to when they do their commentaries on this text, because it's so broken. But on its own, it has some very interesting things. And he talks about atoms. He talks about how everything that is eternal. And what he's talking about is electrons and protons and atoms. At the atomic level, nothing ever dies. There's small enough units that everything is made of, that recombine and then disappear, and then recombine and disappear. And he says that's what life is. It's an atomic theory of existence, and it's true, right? Our science supports it, that underneath of everything there's all these particles that in the Big Bang it spread all these particles out, and then some of them coalesced and some of them interacted chemically, and here we are, right? And that's what he's saying has happened in the Stervany manuscript, 450 BC. They already knew all this stuff, right? Or they'd intuited it, or they had poetic understandings that can be understood as the same thing. And now we have modern science that has all these practices and technical things that demonstrate that what we think is true, but we're still looking for what the true essence, the fabric of our universe is: space, time, gravity, the cosmic field, whatever it is, the ethers, what is going on at the perihelion, at the edge of our solar system. Why is it so hot, and why is it, what's going on? What are we made of? What's at the bottom layer of everything? They think that it's just like, it could be electrons. There could be one electron that moves around throughout all space and time. There could be strings, and depending on where you pluck the string, just like Pythagoras said, depends on what your experiences are, is what the vibration is. But there's just one string, one length. And it's the different lengths that you're harmonizing it at. It's just all these different ways to understand things. It's all looking at this bottom essence, and that bottom essence in this Greek manuscript in the Orphic tradition is Zeus. Is this Zeus the head, the noetic mind? That's the fabric of reality, and out of that comes all these other things, right? Consciousness itself. But I believe that you can at least imagine that you can get to a point where you're in contact with that, or simply being that. And I do it outside, and it's the biggest, it is my biggest touch point to disconnect from the things that bring the darkness, right? Those attachments I was talking about at the beginning of the show. It's to get away from that. You go back to before you were even you, before your ambitions and your desires and your wants. What is it? The thing that's watching you and saying, why don't we do this? Or just has an idea that it might like a chocolate bar, some kind of craving or something, some idea to have an experience. Where does it come from? Being in tune with that outside, looking at the sun on the leaves, it does something to me. It changes me chemically. It releases me from that darkness. When I can release all those things and become that pure light, because we really are sunlight. We really are. This isn't just like a metaphor, right? It's literally the energy of the sun is why I can do this with my finger. The sunlight. We have access as magicians to the sunlight through the names and the seals of the spirits, right? Through the Orphic hymn. But that's what it is getting past all this idea and all the accumulation that's gone on around the sun with your consciousness and your awareness, to the point where you can disconnect from all the other stuff and get back into attunement with your inner light, your inner harmony. Because your inner light is going to shine. It's shining all the time through whatever you do. All of our opinions about good, bad, the other, ugly, indifferent, fair, not fair. Your light's shining the whole time. Moira, fate, Fate is what Zeus decrees, and Zeus decrees it through our bodies, right, into this world and our experiences and all that stuff, but the whole time the light is shining, right, even in the darkness. As long as you're breathing, you're shining, whether you want to or not. It's just how it is, so anyway, if you can get in touch with that and remember that you are light, that's another good way to get in touch with that, or I mean, through the dark night of the soul. It's a hassle, though. Okay, it's a hassle, and when I say that, I mean when you're in the dark night of the soul, you don't feel like going outside, and you don't want to sit there. And what's the point? You're just going to feel this way again anyway, because that's how it is, and it's very sad. And you can't change your mind because it's just how it is, and you're not going to want to move. So I suggest you make little projects, especially as we go into the long dark over the next few months. Make yourself little projects to shine your light, right? That you regularly have to do, so you don't fall into that deep despair where it's hard to even get out of bed. But if you're already in bed, I have a paragraph for you, and it's a way to get out of the darkness as a magician. I suggest you start with the Orphic Hymn to the Sun, but this is the paragraph, and it's right out of our conjuration thing. Helios, I ask that you send now your spirit Michael. By his name and his seal I call him forth, and the four spirits of the pinnacles of the sun, Shemishiel, Paimonia, Racodia, and Malkiel, come now from wherever you may be, and appear before me to manifest my desires. Right? So this is just a simple statement that comes out of our conjuration script. Here, let me bring up the... Where did I put that? Okay, so this is the name and seal of Michael. You got the sun symbol. Where's my little lightning bolt thing? Bolty. All right, so Bolty says, over here, we've got the... Okay, that's not what I meant to do, but anyway, over here is the sun, right? We've got Michael, the name, by his name, and the seal. This is all from the magical calendar of Tycho Brahe. Those are, Helios is the god of the Orphic Hymn to the sun. Call him the sun, and then you say, Michael. Helios asks you, send now your spirit Michael by his name and his seal, I call him forth, and the four spirits of the pinnacles of the sun, right? Shemishiel, Paimonia, Racodia, and Malkiel. Make yourself one of these talismans. It's Sunday today. The next solar hour is probably coming up. It's not Monday yet, unless it's already Monday for you. In that case, do it some other Sunday. But make yourself one of these talismans, okay? This is a simple way to have the name and the seal of Michael on you at all times, and the four spirits of the pinnacles of the Key of Solomon of the sun, right? And this is for the four spirits that give you the control of the powers of the sun on the face of the earth, okay? Bringing these spirits into your sphere by the name and the seal creates a resonance in your own sphere that responds to it in the same way that plucking a string in a music shop will make all the other strings that are at the same tuning vibrate. It's resonance. It will resonate with that part of the sun that is inside of you, and it will draw it out. It'll burn away the darkness. It'll clear away the miasma. It'll cleanse away all of your fears and your anxieties and all of those things a little bit. Maybe not entirely, but just a little bit. And it will create a little bit of momentum, a little bit of force to get you up out of bed and get you on your feet and get you doing things, all right? Make yourself one of these things. Fight the darkness with the sun, because you are the light. You are the light, right? The darkness doesn't come and go. The darkness is always there. The light's temporarily passing through and illuminating what it is. Take advantage of your darkness, right? When you're in the dark, when you're in the underworld, you are the light in the underworld. Look around, look for the things that can help you. Okay, that's where the Hecatonchires were. That's where the Cyclopes were. The Cyclopes forged the lightning bolt. The Cyclopes forged the shield and the helmet, the trident in the helmet, and the lightning bolt that were used to defeat the Titans, right? they found that in the underworld. Dark nights of the soul are not all bad, okay? But the way through it is the sun. It's just the sun. The sun is the engenderer of life, and it's us. We are that light. We are the conscious awareness of sunlight on the face of the earth. You know, each and every one of us. It's pretty cool. Yes, I try to be entertaining. Thank you, Agatha. Okay, I'm going to go back through our comments here. Happy Sunday. ADHD by... Yeah, absolutely. Hail Zeus. Okay. All right, yes, I'm glad you're finding something useful, Allison. I'm hoping that it's helpful. This is all stuff that helped me for sure. I don't have a lot of... I hope it helps as many other people as possible, but I feel like it's only going to help a handful, honestly, at the end of the day. I just don't feel like everybody can really process it, and it's okay. It doesn't have to help everybody. It's not here for everybody, right? It's not supposed to be. Damn, Rufus just got here. That was poetic as hell. Oh, good. I don't remember what that was, but I'm glad that you liked it. Just did a solar right this morning. Very good. Yeah. Hell yeah. That's exactly it. Let's see. I guess it's no coincidence that I ended up doing something impromptu shadow work. Right. Exactly. Yeah. It comes up when you do the sunlight. It's exactly right. Brad's also in Washington. Yes. The big doc is coming. Let's see. Chants have really been great for me too. Yeah. The chants are great. I'm enjoying it too. And Agatha, I'm glad that I. Do you find me amusing? What am I, clown? No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, so yeah, weed witch sounds up my alley. Okay, yeah. All right, you guys, I'm gonna let you go. Have a great Sunday. I'm gonna get on my day job and have fun with that, I guess. All right. Take care. I will talk to you next week. Oh, and if you're gonna join me for Mantra, it's tomorrow at 8-ish. We're gonna try to do it right on time because I've got a new